What's up everybody, welcome back to another video. In this video I'll be showing you how to install some kick-ass rear sets. Alright, so to install your rear sets there are a couple of things you're going to need. Of course you're going to need the actual rear sets themselves. These are Paolo Tarozzi rear sets. I've never used them before to be honest, but from what I've read online, these should be pretty good, so I guess we'll find out. You're gonna need an angle grinder because we'll be doing some cutting. I've got 4 ball joints that I'm going to use. These should connect the rear sets to the old brake and shifter lever, so those two things you're still gonna use. I've got a headless bolt. No particular size, I can just measure and cut the size, so that's why I bought a pretty big one, so I can mess up a couple of times and still have enough material. Like I said, the old brake and shifter lever, a drill, some common hand tools, and a welder is optional. In this video I will be using a welder because of the angle that the brake lever is setting at. You don't have to, I just think it's gonna look better to cut the angle out and make it a straight piece, but that's very optional. I'll be doing it, like I said, because I think it looks pretty good. So let's get to it. Alright, so before you start to cut anything or drill a hole in anything, it's good to think where you want to put your rear sets. When building a cafe racer or anything where you really want to be leaning forward, you want to put your feet a little bit more backwards. Usually people put the rear sets in where they usually would be the passenger pegs. This is not a cafe racer. This bike will have a upright position, or the rider on the bike at least will have that. So I don't want to have my feet too far backwards because that will be uncomfortable and also, in my opinion, look kind of weird. The original setup is they're not front controls, but they're a bit more further to the front than I would say your typical mid controls. So when I put the original brake lever on, or just kind of put it on, you can see so front mounts would be over here, and in mid controls, in my opinion, would be somewhere around here. So they're kind of in between that. This riding position would be fine. I don't think it looks really good, and I think having your feet a bit further backwards would be great. So I think this position where my feet is resting right now would be a good spot to mount them. I also think that mounting the rear set to the original brake lever somewhere around here would be easy, so we don't have a big gap to make up for, just a couple of centimeters. So that should be good. This feels natural. Upright, but your legs are bended but not too far back. This should be pretty good. So if you're having a hard time figuring out where you want to position your rear set, like I said, what I would advise you to do is to have a seat on a bike and just kind of feel around. I had a general idea of where I wanted to put the rear set, but well, obviously I'm filming myself. So I looked at the footage, made sure I thought it looked good as well, because of course that is also quite important. And I figured that the rear set should be around here somewhere. So it's actually quite close to the rear brake. So what I'm going to do right now is to drill a hole right here, because according to the footage that should be good to go, should be the right place. So we're going to do that right now. Alright, Alright, so after drilling the hole, I quickly mounted the rear set. In my opinion, it looks pretty good, sitting where it is. Of course, the rear set itself really doesn't look stock, but the position kind of does. And that's quite the look I wanted to go for. Didn't want it to look really goofy. So for the people that are curious whether the rear set will hold, so when you use it, a lot of people will think that maybe it will let go. So as you can see, the rear set is moving, but the bolt inside of it isn't. In the back as well, so that means that it should hold pretty damn good. I'll quickly take a seat on it. I don't know whether you can see this considering the angle, but this feels pretty natural. So yeah, perfect. Alright, so the rear set is on. Unfortunately, you have to do a little bit more work to make it actually work. So what a lot of people do, and what I'm going to be doing as well, is connect the rear set to the old brake. So this is the old brake lever. I'm going to put that on here a little bit, like that. Now, as you can see, when you use the old brake lever, the brake system works. So what we got to do is find a way to connect this new rear set to the old brake. What you could do is cut it off right here and directly mount it to that, but I think that if you're going to brake, it's going to require a lot of effort, and you really want to brake quite easily. And I think having to push really hard on the brake before something happens is not the way to go, so we're not going to do that. Like I said earlier in the video, I'm going to cut the angle out. Let's see if I can take it off really quick. So as you can see, there's quite an angle. That's what's making it hard to directly mount it to the rear set or connect it to that. So I'm going to cut the angle out, cut a piece of this off, weld it into that. So then when we put it back on, it should be going straight down, same way as this does, and the connection should be a whole lot easier. And as you can see, it will, the connection is very short. I think that would look quite good. On the other side, of course, because the shifter on the engine is a little further forward, we won't be able to have that same look, but I think this will look pretty damn good. So the first thing I'm going to do right now is cut this to size and weld it. Like I said earlier in this video, you don't have to, but I personally think that that will look better, and seeing how I'm building this bike, that's exactly what I'll do. You can see I've just cut the brake lever. The idea is that I'm going to weld the straight part from the, they're still quite hot, this part from the brake lever to the part that you use to mount it. They're about the same size. I'm just going to spot weld them on a couple of spots because I'm not sure whether this is going to work. Once I decide how far up I want the ball joint to connect, the excess part I'll cut off and round off to make it look nice. But for now, this is looking pretty good. So as you can hear, the welder is cooling off in the back, but for now this is what it looks like. Definitely not the prettiest, but it'll hold long enough for us to figure out what looks good. After that I'll weld it shut and it should look pretty good. So let's put it back on the bike and find out how this looks and how it works out. Alright, so it's slightly cooled off. We're gonna put it on now. I'm not gonna permanently mount it just yet, but we're going to put it on. It always needs a little bit of encouragement. There we go. Now, the idea is to use these ball joints that I showed you earlier, like that. So the second one should basically sit somewhere around here. As you can see, this is a bit further forward, but we can do it like that. That should work just fine. I could do it a little lower. How would that look? Would that look better? Not sure. So I'm guessing around halfway of the part that we welded on. I think that will look and work pretty good. So what I'm going to do right now is drill a hole in the part that we welded right here. After that we'll be cutting the bolt that I showed you before. So the idea is that you put this in here, cut it somewhere to where you think it's good. So that's what I'm going to do right now. After that I'll be drilling a hole in the brake lever, connect it, see how it looks. If I like it, I'll keep it that way. If it doesn't work out, we'll figure out something else. Alright, so I've cut the bolt and connected the ball joints again. This looks pretty good. It's in the center of the brake lever, so what I'm going to do right now is drill a hole in there and mount this thing for good. After that I will finish the brake weld, or the weld on the brake lever, but that's nothing too serious. So after that we should be good to go. Alright, so with the drilling done, let's see how this will look and whether it'll actually work. It's still quite hot. Trying not to burn myself. Okay, so it's mounted very loosely, but ta-da! This works. In my opinion, this also looks pretty damn good. Alright, so on the other side it's kind of the same thing, so I didn't want to bore you with more drilling and stuff like that. So I already mounted the rear set. You can see it's still quite loose on there. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to connect the shifter lever, drill a hole in it, position the rear set in the way that I like, put ball joints in both, check it out again, see how it feels. If it looks good, we'll make it permanent. If it doesn't, we'll figure out something else. I'm a bit worried that perhaps when these both are connected, that the new shifter peg on the rear set is going to intervene. If that happens, that won't be that big of a deal, because we could always put this upside down and the bar would be on the higher side. I would prefer it to be underneath it, because on the brake we have that as well, and I'd like to go for a kind of symmetrical feeling, if you catch my drift. But we'll figure it out as we go along. So the first thing I'll do right now is connect the shifter lever, drill a hole in it, and figure out where we go from there. So currently the rear set is mounted to the shifter. It looks okay, I guess, but one thing that I forgot to consider is how low it is, how big the action to actually shift is going to be. So if I want to shift right now, I have to pull it way too much up and shift down as well. Like don't know if you can see this on camera, but the action that you have to do just to shift is way too big. So we're gonna drill a hole a little bit higher. Hopefully that'll make a difference. Alright, so I've got the bolt again, a bit shorter this time. This time the movement's pretty good. I've sat on the bike, felt around, it feels pretty great. The bolt was still touching the shifter peg from the rear set, which I did not love. So what I decided to do was, instead of having the ball joint on the outside of the rear set, I've put it on the inside. So you won't be able to see it. I guess that's not that big of a deal. It looks good, but at the same time, no problem. Anyway, now there's definitely no connection. It smooths, the shift's pretty smooth, feels all natural. So yeah, that's pretty damn great. Alright, we are all done. I've grinded the shifter peg a little more, the original one, to make it look a little better. As you can see, it shifts pretty damn good right now. On the other side as well. Let me show you that. Brakes all finished up, looking pretty damn good. Right, so on the right side of the bike, the rear set is permanently mounted, as well as on the left side, of course. I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. In my opinion, it looks really good. Also works really well. I kind of like that the angle is almost the same as the brake lever itself. It's comfortable, it really works. It doesn't require too much power to brake, but isn't too light either. So I'm really pleased with that. One quick tip that I still wanted to give you is, once you've done all this, I would most definitely advise you to use some bolts to hold the ball joints down. The ball joints themselves do have a thread in them, but due to all the vibrations of riding and using it a million times, I could definitely imagine the bolt getting loose. So what I meant to say was, use some nuts. Just put 2 nuts in the middle, put the ball joints on. After that you can use the nut to hold down the ball joints a little tighter. This way they'll definitely won't go anywhere. Alright, I guess that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you did, please consider subscribing. Let me know what you think. Do you think the rear sets look good? Should they be mounted somewhere else? Would you do it this way as well? Do you have any experience with these Tarozzi rear sets? Let me know, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.